So that one's deferred. So we're now on item 17. Welcome, Kat. Meeting our national equality standards. We are. Now, just the fit for the future presentation, Merla was going to get us up to speed on everything that had happened with regard to libraries. However, we have quite a large discussion to have with elected members, our boards, IMSB, on mobile library technology, library buses, all of that sort of thing. My recommendation is that we hold a workshop with our local boards and councillors and IMSB so that we all share that information at the same time. Otherwise, our wonderful and slightly taxed library staff, we're going to have to schlep around 20 different local boards over 2 months. I thought we could do it far more effectively at a really focused meeting. So that's instead of this. Item 17. Thanks, Kat.
Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi kia koutou. This paper just sets out for Council an updated information about our compliance with national air quality standards. For a while we didn't meet the national air quality standards, but we have been doing very well in recent years in our compliance, mainly due to national initiatives such as controls on fuel, controls on vehicle emissions, national standards around heating, and also a range of initiatives that Auckland Council has completed around, the unitary plan, bylaws, retrofit your home program. So there's a whole raft of initiatives which we've outlined in the paper, which keep contributing to our compliance. We, I suppose, are always at some risk of exceeding the national air standard. However, in recent years, that risk is lowering. So I think I came and talked to many of you about 2 years ago where that risk was much higher. We were just complying. That's when we were around 49 micrograms and this national standard's 50. And if you have a look on page 177, you'll see the table there shows that from 2014 we've gone down from 45 to our highest reading being around 30. So it just shows the improvements that are being made. We would say that we still need to keep on top of this issue. We do need to talk to the public about actions they can take, particularly coming into winter and during winter. That's when we have the most likelihood of an exceedance occurring. We do need to keep and increase our monitoring and reporting, so more regular reporting to this committee so we can track changes and trends more quickly. And we also need staff to keep up to date about what relevant interventions there are, should this council need to implement some of those and respond quickly.
Any questions? It's pretty straightforward. It's actually good news. Councillor Darby.
These exceedances are measured at the monitoring sites.
Yes.
And we have this enormous Auckland, and we have 7 monitoring sites. So we're slapping ourselves on the back for success when those monitoring sites are limited to 7. And are you confident that you can read air quality in Auckland from 7 monitoring sites?
So just to check, this report is not about air quality generally. It is about complying with the national standards. And so I've got the scientists here who can talk to you about why the monitoring sites are where they are. So the airshed is defined by government through classification and gazetting, and someone will confirm, but I'm pretty sure government specifies where our monitoring sites are as well. Yes, come and answer
While
that.
our scientist makes his way slowly to the front, I don't think anyone is slapping ourselves on the back, Councillor Darby. I think in this case we're saying we're in a better position than we were. This is certainly not to be construed that we are comfortable, relaxed, nor happy with air quality in Auckland, and that we don't continue to do everything we can about it. And for those of us who sat on the long and extremely complex and convoluted air quality standards, smoky chimneys hearing, we're anything but relaxed. So I really don't want that to be what people think we're saying here. It's an entirely different issue.
Hi. Hi everybody, my name is Nick Talbot, Dr. Nick Talbot. I'm the air quality scientist here for REMU. Just quickly to explain, you come up with a really good point actually. 7 sites were actually put together. It's obviously gone up and down in number over the years, and they were put because certain areas have an industrial emission, some areas have a home heating emission, and some have a roadside emission. What we try and do is try and look at places which have a large traffic number, which will give an emission from car exhaust, for example. Some places which have an industrial emission, which have historically been Penrose, and other places where we've had a lot of home heating in the past. Situation has changed quite rapidly now as we've suddenly become a much denser population within the city centre. So we have to utilise various other different mechanisms. We can now monitor using passive tubes along roadways. This is basically a poorer temporal resolution, i.e. they tend to stay up for a longer period of time. But they do give us really good data on traffic, for instance, over a longer period of time. It's using these that we actually know that there is an issue to do with traffic within the city centre. For our monitoring stations, the situation has been that the PM2.5 and PM10, so the smallest particles and the larger particles, have actually decreased everywhere, over the whole airshed, over the past 10 years. This is largely driven by the reduction of sulfur within our fuels, which has been regulatory, but also the fact that we've got cleaner engines now, cleaner motor vehicles. So basically, even though we've got more vehicles, the amount of emission per vehicle is actually dropped off. What we're actually doing now is we're plateauing. So this has sort of leveled off because the amount of vehicles on a road is now increasing to such a degree that it's actually mitigating against the positive effect of cleaner engines. NO2 has not changed like this. NO2 has decreased slightly due to this, but it's not really decreased at the same rate. And at the moment, it's like stagnating, if not slightly increasing. What your point is about these seven sites, whether or not they're actually a valid data set for the entire, it's a really good question, and it needs support from smaller monitors. What we're actually doing at the moment is we're looking into building a smart city capacity, lots of smaller monitors which can go up and validate the larger monitors. So basically you have the 7 monitors as a regulatory sort of stations throughout Auckland, and then we build on that picture by using smaller monitors scattered in hotspots, mostly around the city centre, because this is where our largest population increase has, from 5,000 to 50,000 over the last decade, I think. So we're particularly worried about this, and this is mainly because of people's exposure to these pollutants. I'm particularly worried, obviously, about the high asthma rates, because obviously NO2 triggers asthma, and it can make it basically a very chronic or acute problem for a lot of people in this country. So it's important and imperative that we look and monitor this correctly. So we do try and look to build the smart city capacity, and we envisage that this could happen within the next year or so. We're actually looking into it and using partnerships with, say, NIWA and GNS, as long as some consultancies as well, to try and build a big picture.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was a really good response, and you've painted a really good picture there of these possible mini sensors. So that the point I'm making, Madam Chair, is I do get complaints from the Devonport and the Northcote community where there are older dwellings with chimneys and open fires still, and we never made much of a move on that. That's gone, but I would probably like to see those mini sensors located in the valleys and the flatlands of some of these communities, not on a hill where you're not going to get the same reading. The same would apply for Ponsonby, the back of Grey Lynn, where there's very little movement in air when there's inversion layers in the winter. And if you look at page 178, it tells the story of winter, when people are exposed to asthma attacks more than they are. And it is, while overall, Madam Chair, transport is the biggest contributor, it appears from looking at that, and I've not seen that graphic before on page 178, the risk is sitting there on the right. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When winter arrives, I hope people have those fires going and keep themselves warm. Chair, the report refers to the regulatory and non-regulatory measures that we use or contribute to us meeting or exceeding the national air quality standards. It's about a year now since the air quality bylaw for indoor domestic fires was passed. I voted against it at the time because it wasn't enforceable, because it didn't have the powers of entry. What use has that bylaw been since it was passed to drive air quality standards if it's not enforceable? And if you don't have the answer today, you can come back in writing.
We don't have the answer to that, but what I can say, it has the impact that it had when it was a rule in the air quality plan regionally, which is what it replaced. So it was actually maintaining our status quo. Only the regulatory instrument really changed.
Yeah, in terms of air quality, perhaps the most significant increase was achieved back over 10 years ago, back in the time of the ARC, when it was led by the late Phil Warren. And the ARC at the time led a very long campaign, quite a high profile campaign, to get the new government of the day, Labour-led government, to upgrade the Marsden Point oil refinery, or to require the upgrade of the Marsden Point oil refinery. Up until that stage, the refinery standards were worse than any third world country, and so that achieved a major reduction over time, especially as the vehicle fleet modernised, a reduction of particulates and sulphur. But as you say, there will be a stage when there is so much vehicle traffic that those gains will be cancelled out just by sheer mass. Thank you.
There is some really good, the supporting information here is fantastic, and it does give opportunities for a bit of hope. Any other questions or comments, members? If not, would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Filipaina. Someone from this side of the table? Member Brown? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, team. And moving on to item 18. You want to... Indeed. Yep, let's get our team up there. We're doing fine. Let's not get too carried away. So Councillor Simpson's happy to move, to get it on the table. Someone else like to second that? Okay, I think Councillor Filipaina will second. Okay, over to you, Kat, whoever.
Since you've had a very long day and it's a very short paper, we wondered if you just had any questions.
Okay, questions, Councillor Simpson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, my question is around the local board impacts and local board views, and I say this potentially as a question as a result of the quality advice program that kind of has altered the local board section for impacts and board views. The local boards hold decision making and budget for playgrounds, right? This paper, even though I've read the attachment for the feedback, doesn't give the feedback from the local boards. 21 boards gave their feedback. It's done by ethnicity and other measures, but it doesn't actually give the local board views. So I just wondered, my question is, I want to know why. And I just think particularly because this is their delegation and it would have been nice to have it.
Oh, okay. I won't, I'm tempted to answer it, but I won't.
Through the chair, we had feedback from 21 local boards, and what we've tried to do is weave through that analysis of the submissions, the feedback that we received from the 21 local boards on a question-by-question basis, and just to provide some context in terms of what the overall themes were that came out of those local board workshops. And the other observation that I would make is that this feedback that we've received will then inform the development of the draft plan, which will be subject to formal consultation with local boards.
I accept that, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, it's just a process thing, you know. We asked them for their feedback. This is something completely within their delegation. And we have a huge attachment. It could have been there, that's all.
It's a quick question, members. There's two ways that we can do it. Our staff go out and consult with our local boards to bring together a report for us. It is a little bit of, you know, have your dog and bark too. Do we necessarily always need all the local board feedback attached, or could it just be made available? Because what's useful for me is the synthesis of that local board feedback into developing this draft plan, which will now go out for formal conversation for the local boards. To be absolutely honest, if it was attached, I don't know whether I'd read that. I'm more interested in what's the overall feedback we get. The key thing is they've been asked, they've been involved, they've helped shape this. So, I think it's fair enough. I think it is, maybe it is a discussion, not for now, but I think it is a wider discussion, because we could end up in the position of always appending, 58 pages of local board feedback that is just sort of left out of anyone's consideration. It's more interesting to see how it's been fed through into the development of the report. So it may be a discussion that we have as part of the group that Councillor Cooper's on with Councillor Northey, is some of that, how do we best reflect that? I think it's an ongoing... Oh, okay. It might be the quality advice. Yeah.
I think, Madam Chair,
Just to clarify, just to clarify through the chair, it's the next phase. So we are well aware what the delegations are for local boards. One of the issues is a regional issue, and then it is a local board network issue. But it is the next phase, which will come back to you more slowly, because local boards are critical to developing the draft. So in terms of their effort and using a lot of their time, we have worked with local boards around prioritising the next phases, which will be quite intensely developed with local boards.
Accept that, but you've asked them to resolve, and they've resolved, and I just think that what happens is that just gets lost. We don't see that. That's just my view. But we can discuss it at the quality advice and come back to councillors.
Just wonder if you got any comment on the relatively low number of actual submissions. There's only 82 for what was quite a detailed and impressive document in its own way. And I suppose the other thing that occurs to me just looking at it is it's kind of relatively predictable what people have come back and said about outdoor plays, isn't it? Things that we largely already know. And the only other thing I'd like to comment on is really the extent to which we can match expectations, given that clearly everyone has an expectation that this very valuable assets that are provided by council are provided in the area. So, A, the low turnout, and I guess B, that meeting that level of expectation.
So the low turnout, this is what we would expect for a topic like this at this stage. So most people will engage when there's something more solid to react to, rather than it's something which asks you more of a high level feeling. So the discussion documents by their nature are more high level seeking, almost like a document view of an informant interview. The stronger you get in your views, the more people then go, now I know what this means. In terms of your second question, I mean, some of the things that have come back with are things we aren't doing all the time. So we are only providing for certain age groups. We are only building one type of thing and replicating it on nearly every park we've got. We're not doing some of the variety we could. We're not doing some of the types of nature play. And we sometimes are taking on health and safety risks that parents and caregivers are perhaps more responsible for in our parks than we are. And this document allowed us to have some of those conversations about risk levels of activities on our parks, which is becoming difficult. People have high expectations that everything will be fenced, because generally parents sit on chairs, lots of them now, looking at iPhones while their children run around parks unsupervised. There are some basic things like, I know sage shells are great, but they are about $25,000, $20,000, $6,000 a pop, and trees are cheaper and would help achieve our ngāhere strategy. But also parents could, put a hat on, put some sunscreen on, and watch how long children are outside in the sun in peak time. So I know it seems like obvious common sense stuff, but actually they're discussions that need to be held with the community, because the community's trying to make us perhaps cover everything, and everything like fencing and shade sales and those sorts of things cost money. We also, I suppose, one of the other opportunities we're missing is lots of people talk about some of our parks that are underdeveloped and not used. They see them as useless space. But sometimes when you think about nature play or having variety, for example, a lot of the pocket parks in Ponsonby, if each park had a different offering, not just a swing on slide on every park, then you might have a network trail of parks where some are nature play, some are more risky play, and parents and grandparents may have a range of opportunities to use some of our smaller underused parks as networks. I mean, we do see it down at Wynyard Quarter. We have, one little park just has a big lovely slide, and then you walk across the road and up a bit and it's just a water feature, and then you move down. So I suppose we were trying to explore those opportunities.
Sorry, just one if I may. I was under the impression that in some developments that it's actually the developers who provide the park and the equipment, because I certainly see in my area huge variation of play to a very high standard, I might add. So that is a bit of a kind of variation across Auckland then, is it, depending on who's doing whatever development?
So generally the variation isn't in who that play is being provided for. So generally that play is for mostly the same ages, and it is mostly in steel. Mostly.
And just to add to that, probably the variation depends on where they are in the renewal cycle. So you'll see there's a lot of new playgrounds which would have reached their life term and have been renewed with a much higher level of provision within that neighbourhood.
Thanks, Chair. Mine are just comments. Firstly, I just wanted to say that I enjoyed reading this report. I thought it was really good. I especially liked on page 6 in the executive summary, you pick up on a comment that we hear a lot where I'm from, which is, if this was another part of town, the playground would look better. So the emphasis of what you've picked up in the feedback around prioritising investment in low socioeconomic communities was, for me, it's good because it's out in the front of the report, and it means that those of us who've been critical, like who are wondering what's going on, why our playgrounds might not look as cool as others, feel like, okay, it's being emphasised in the report. Just a minor thing, because I like pictures way better than words, on your key on page 9 in the report, in that the appendix, the green key is missing. So you've got all the ethnicities and stuff, but you haven't keyed other as in green. Just thought I'd throw that in because I like that colour. And I just wanted to pick up on the point that Councillor Simpson was making. I think it is worthy, Chair, of the overall discussion as to how we include the local board feedback. I think it's just important to have them somehow visible. It might not be a complete outline of what they're saying, but make sure they've resolved on it and just get some of their input, because we don't want them to have the perception that they're not included, that we're not acknowledging their work. So I know that that's a broader discussion. I think that's a really good discussion to have, and I know that at some stage we will settle on that, but I think it's important for local boards looking in that they feel like they are co-governor or shared governors in this space. Thanks.
How are we doing with the Kia ora, and thank you, Chair and councillors. We'll keep it short. I don't want to say too much. We have the written memo that we've shared with you as part of your briefing pack. I want to hand it over to Pam Ford, my colleague at ATED and the General Manager there, to take over to provide the presentation and a few other things. We wanted to maximise our time on this presentation. If you have any questions on the memo itself, maybe I could suggest we leave those to the end. We also have some business delegates that are going to be joining us very shortly to share their insights of joining the Mayor in Guangzhou and their experiences of being there. So for now, I'd like to hand over to Pam.
Thank you, Koro. Kia ora tātou, everybody. We do have two delegates coming. Managing partner at BNZ, Brandon Jackson, who I think he thought he was on at 4, so he's on his way, and Garth Falconer from Reset Urban Design. So thank you for the opportunity. We wanted to bring to life the actual, what we think was a great success of the tripartite through the eyes of the delegates, and hear from them. There is a video as well, which I think you've got there, Tam, maybe to play. That might be a good way to start, and let's hear from them.
Our collaboration. 3 quite different cities in different parts of the world, developed a relationship that you couldn't do in other circumstances. Before you do business, you have to form your relationships, and those relationships are really important in China. The really critical thing is the people-to-people relationship. I think our business community found that incredibly valuable.
China's massive, right? And going even into a small part of China.
Yeah, we'll just have one more crack. This is the difficulty of having no
In 2014,
AV.
LA, Guangzhou, and Auckland created the Tripartite Agreement to strengthen our shared goals and brought us together to learn more from one another and deepen our collaboration.
Three quite different cities in different parts of the world developed a relationship that you couldn't do in other circumstances. Before you do business, you have to form your relationships, and those relationships are really important in China. The really critical thing is the people-to-people relationship. I think our business community found that incredibly valuable.
China's massive, right? And going even into a small part of China can be overwhelming. So being part of a mayoral delegation and with the support of AT just provided us the perfect platform to be able to network with and meet other like-minded businesses.
Being part of a mayoral delegation put us immediately into high-level discussions and relationships.
Like straight away, I got 4 business cards handed out to me. Going with the government, they know that we legitimate and also give lots of confidence and faith.
The environment is completely organised and meetings are already facilitated with people I wouldn't otherwise met at senior levels. I mean, it was just so well organised, like a well-oiled machine.
Inspiration was really around the opportunities to really represent us as the mana whenua of Tamaki. We have a Māori culture that is unique to the world. We want to be able to showcase that in any way possible through any opportunities that we can.
In Guangzhou, it was just fantastic to see the hospitality and just the people, the warmth. Everything involves food, which I'm a great believer in, and everything was about the people.
I was really proud to be part of the Auckland team, well led by the Mayor. Came across very much as a team effort up there.
I really enjoyed the whakawhanaungatanga feeling, getting to meet some really cool people.
It's provided us international opportunities with companies in China and LA at the top of their game in tech, innovation and ideas. I mean, they want to work with you.
My career has revolved around my ability as an artist to make real fantastical worlds.
People made business relationships, they did deals, we signed memorandums of understanding. The contacts that you build up, incredibly valuable. It's been remarkably successful.
There's so many opportunities, and it gave us leads that we would never have been able to render up ourselves. Without the support of AT, it would have been something quite different.
A couple of them were wanting to come and meet with us, and so, you know, it's just been fabulous.
The legacy of this trip will enable us to kind of move forward into emerging territories for New Zealand as a leader in some of these spheres.
It's kind of like open another window for us and give us another angle. I think that's awesome.
And it's just a starting point. It's very exciting.
We need to keep networking to build that platform.
It's provided us with long-lasting relationships that I believe will see some real positive influence into New Zealand.
So you get a good feel there of what the delegates thought as soon, when they got back, and I know the Mayor and Councillor Darby, who were part of that delegation, can endorse the feeling of collegiality and hope that was expressed by the delegates. So I won't go through this whole presentation, but just a few highlights. The Mayor led a delegation of 97 business people from 70 organisations, which was by far the biggest delegation we've ever taken offshore, and exceeded our expectations by almost double the number of companies that were interested. And the reason we think that was the case was the interest in One China, but also the workshop programs that we put in place before the event from June through to November, which helped our companies get familiar with the China market and how they could take advantage of this trip. In terms of results, the survey has shown us that companies found at least 6 business leads per delegate. They've indicated that over the next 5 years, the average increase in sales would be 4.37 million, and increasing staff by 5. Most importantly, the net spend to Auckland Council was $46,000, and I know when Koro and I were here last time talking about it was much higher than that. So that was due to the partnerships that we developed with the likes of BNZ, NZTE, Huawei, and Matakana Estate. So I think all of the information is in the paper, and I would hand over now to one of our delegates, Garth Falconer, from Research Urban Design, who has a good story to tell.
Right. Good afternoon. It is a good story because for years, as our design industries have been playing sort of second fiddle to overseas experts. And for us, this was a major opportunity to go over to the fastest urbanising part of the planet, this Pearl River Delta, 60 million people, 15 million of those in Guangzhou, and really show our stuff. And we went over in May and did a design workshop with their planners. We worked well with them, we collaborated, we were resourceful with all the things that we hold dear as New Zealanders. And we worked on these very complex, fast developing areas. From that we were invited back to work on a 78 hectare port development, and this is the some of the sketches up there. There's about 13 buildings. They range from about 100 to 300 metres high. A range of industries and a major excavation of the Pearl River to create a port, to create a place around which a lot of amenity is going to be developed. So we're working with the Guangzhou Planning and Design Institute, which is the provincial government's arm, design and planning arm. And they have a single building. They house something like 2,500 professionals in this building. So we're working with that institution closely and in a collaboration. They have also in January, I was up in January, invited back to present this scheme, and they gave me this further scheme, which is a 20-kilometre waterfront design. It's on the central island of Guangzhou. That island there in the bottom left shows you the scale of it. There's about 3 or 4 million people living on that island. There's a range of large industrial sites like steel mills and paper mills that have now decamped and are left vacant. And there's a major wetland to the right. The idea is to create a continuous public realm of circulation for pedestrians and cyclists along that 20 kilometres, and to really give it some character and some nuance. So that's really exciting. And in addition to that, the engineers kind of crashed one of our meetings and laid out a large 100-hectare riverside park they want us to take through to detailed design. So this is just fantastic for us. It's really exciting. We are also on Monday welcoming one of the Guangzhou planners into our office for the next 3 months, and she'll be working with us. We're going to give her a range of New Zealand projects to work on. And this is the start of, I think, is going to be a very interesting chapter in our professional development here. And we're also bringing these ideas and this experience and this confidence of dealing with this large scale back to New Zealand, back to Auckland. So it's just a fantastic thing for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Garth. That's brilliant. And we just heard today too from Kathy Vaninga, who's the head of DINS, Designers Institute of New Zealand, that this weekend 2 interns from Guangzhou and 1 from Los Angeles are coming to Auckland for 3 months to be billeted and to work in design companies in Auckland. So that's another direct result, of which there are many. Brandon Jackson has just joined us, so I'll let him catch his breath. You might want to swap desks, Carl. And another huge outcome from the Tripartite Summit, and remembering that one of the reasons that this summit was so successful is that we have learnt a lot over the 3 years of the Tripartite program, and people like Garth and this animation company started their negotiations back in Auckland in 2016 and then were able to seal their deals in 2017. So the other success that we've, or key to success over the 3 years, is the partnerships that we've been able to build over that time. And the partnership with BNZ has probably been the most telling of how council and private sector can work well in a business context. So I'll hand over to Brandon to give you a few examples.
Right, well, hi everybody. Brandon Jackson, Managing Partner of BNZ in Auckland. So just to give you a brief bit of background, we try to grow our customers through our segments from business to commercial to corporate. And one of our values is helping New Zealanders be good with money so we can achieve a high-performing New Zealand. And part of that is actually things like our partnership with the TEED. And the environment that I work in is one where I've got to grow revenue, manage risk, and reduce cost. So do more with less probably resonates, I'd imagine. But part of that is, you've got to make sure that you invest wisely and with the right partners. And obviously we review things all the time, but we're very pleased with what we saw out of the China trip with a TEED. Just as an observation, the photos up there, I do look like I've got giantism there, but I think it's just the angle of the camera. So hopefully that's nothing I need to be worried about. But look, just to give you some examples, my view is, and I've shared this internally, we can't do this alone from a BNZ perspective. Public-private partnership is far more effective. So we can find the customers, but we can't open the doors that get opened for our customers, or some of them anyway, with the mayoral delegations. So the stuff that Mayor Goff did, our TEED partners did, NZTE did. When you put that together, it's a really powerful combination. Just to give you a couple of examples, and some of them are up there on the screen, I believe. So I just got notice yesterday. Let me go back a step. The immediate impact is knowledge. So we've got people that understand the market better, and rather than sort of faffing about in a foreign market, trying to find the right place to go, that is accelerated. So we've had a customer who's built a very promising relationship with Huawei, and so they're becoming in talks with becoming preferred supplier sort of status, and that came directly as a result of an TEED introduction. We couldn't achieve that ourselves, but at the same time we brought the customer along. I got notification yesterday, and so a lot of this is mid-term benefit. The knowledge development is immediate, but the revenue from our selfish perspective will come mid-term, long-term. But for example, we've got a customer whose trade lines, we got notification yesterday that they have increased their international trade finance lines by 50%, principally off the back of this trip and the connections that we've had into China. I'll actually go back to that one I was referred to. So if you look at customer one, product launch of new consumer product in China, VOP.com, e-commerce, so a massively growing area and something that New Zealanders need to get their heads around. 300 million customers, that was a direct introduction, and they're now shipping a container for sale, and we've got a close connection with the person that we met in Guangzhou, who's now heading up the office in Sydney. So that kind of connection is some of the direct results that came out of the tripartite and the connection we had with ATEED. So VOP.com is that company I was talking about. We've talked about Huawei, and another customer has, give an example of knowledge, they're changing their manufacturing so they can reduce their costs, changing their packaging so it suits the market, and changing the recipe for the particular product that they're looking to put into China. There's no way they could have known that without trial and error. And yet, sure, you can have experts that come down and tell you these things, but it's not the same as talking directly with the companies. So this all came directly from that trip, which we're very pleased to sponsor. That's me.
So I think that pretty much gives you a flavour of the outcomes that we've had since the November trip. Are there any questions on the paper?
We never quite seem to get to that stage, so it's fantastic to actually hear the success and the outcomes from the, I was going to say the shop floor, but you're not quite the shop floor, but, you know, from the top shelf. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and firstly can I acknowledge Pamela Jameson and the AT team did a fantastic job for us, and to thank Garth and Brandon for their comments. Sometimes when you're on one of these whirlwind trips, everything's swirling around you and you're never quite sure what's coming out the other end, so it's really reinforcing, and I think Chris Darby and Ross Clough, who are with me on this trip, will support this, to actually see some of the hard data coming out. You know, the media would have been tempted to brand this as a junket. I think I left at midnight on Wednesday. I was there for 2 sleeps, and then I left Guangzhou at midnight on Friday night. I think probably 8 media interviews and 7 speeches, but it was a junket. You know, I was there with my feet up, as were all the delegates. I think what Garth said is particularly important. China is a culturally different from here. Actually, mayors count in China. Wish we could introduce some of that culture to New Zealand. And one of the big benefits is that you do get access at a top political level, and big business and big government in China work very, very closely together. So I felt that I'd sort of taken a leap back 8 years to being Trade Minister again, but I think the feedback I was getting from the delegates on the ground were backed up by the sort of feedback we got here. You know, very high percentage of satisfaction. You'll never get 100% satisfaction, but, you know, 90% of our delegates saying they would recommend a trip like this to others. They paid for themselves, they put money into it, therefore they wanted to get a return on it. And it's sometimes hard because of commercial sensitivities to say what those returns are, but I have no doubt that we got some very good results. And all of this for the princely sum to Auckland of $46,000 because of strong support. Thank you very much, Brandon, from our sponsors such as the BNZ and Matakana Wines. Great opportunity, accompanied by Mana Whenua, to showcase Auckland, to showcase, you know, our point of identity culturally with the world. Fantastic response to the Kapa Haka performance. I think we had the team from Rotorua, the winners of the Kapa Haka, and it just drew those different strands together in a way that was particularly effective. So, you know, a big thanks to the councillors who accompanied me and were really supportive. Big thanks to ATEED and GPS for the work that they did in setting it up. And particularly a big thanks to all of our business delegation that worked together. It's like New Zealand Inc. You all go there, diverse things that you might be promoting, services, products, etc., but there as part of Team New Zealand and selling our case to the world. And just to put it in perspective, New Zealand fits 4 to 5 times into Guangzhou population-wise. In other words, they're 16, 17 million as compared to our 4.6 million. So it is hard to be noticed in a big place like China, a delegation like this. And the link in, I've just got to say finally, with Los Angeles, a lot of the relationship building is with the other delegates from the other country and not just the host country. So I watched New Zealand businesses, particularly in the creative sphere, working very closely with LA businesses. Top level delegation, sadly without Mayor Garcetti, but otherwise really top people from Los Angeles. I think, you know, the trip did credit to all of those involved in it. So to those at the end of the table, from me personally, a very big thanks. Cheers.
I think the Mayor's helped me with my question with an answer insofar as I understood the genesis of the tripartite thing. I was part of the committee at the last milestone interaction. But if I heard the Mayor right, the actual event was for all New Zealand businesses?
No, it was an Auckland delegation, and the tripartite is in a relationship between three cities, LA, Guangzhou, and Auckland. But we were backed up by the New Zealand Embassy. We were backed up by New Zealand Trade and Enterprise.
It's just probably one of the compelling digitals that I saw was the face of our leader standing in front of a sign telling everybody how great the milk was in Taupo. Which begs this question. How was Taupo or Miraka related
I think that was Miraka who do have some business in Auckland as well. So they went up as one of the 4 Māori businesses.
Okay, because in there, no, it's probably not for here.
We also
but
had...
Taiho. There are a number of mana whenua that were still in Auckland that have businesses. So, you know, let's be clear. When we're Auckland City, we're Auckland City. And that, you know, people trading here need to do a little bit more than just trade in Auckland, insofar as need to be living in here, from here, about this future of Auckland. And not just a trading post from which commercial gains are made. There is many gains to be made. And I don't approve of the Mayor's comment, I don't subscribe to it that they are a different culture, because in Māori they're actually very similar. And we've known that for centuries. So I just want to keep us around the tripartite, which I was new to at last year's interaction. I clearly understood to be between our 3 cities. And it does concern me that we have this generosity, if you were, that enables Māori commercial business, and I'll use Māori because I'm representing them. But it's remiss of my representation not to acknowledge all the Māori that actually live here and actually are committed to this future of Auckland. Kia ora.
Yeah, just so respectfully point out that that was a BNZ customer. So we opened it up to our Auckland customers first and foremost, and acknowledge what you're saying about Maori representatives in Auckland. So it's open to them as well. Occasionally it's horses for courses around what particular product will fit with that representation or delegation up to China. So that's where that actually came from.
Okay, then, and I do accept that. I can see the logistics and the practicalness of it all. However, the genesis of the agreement, if I was to take what you said, which I do accept, the question I then have is, how did you arrive at who was going to fit where in the Māori commercial world based on your clientele, and of which I understand my board to be one of them? So the invitations that you're suggesting went out. I certainly can't recall them. Kia ora.
Kia ora. So BNZ did take some clients and they aligned to the sectors that we'd agreed amongst the 3 cities. With our Māori stakeholder engagement team at ATEED and with consultation and council, we did look at those sectors and talk to mana whenua in Auckland and invite those that had interest in those sectors. And Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei were the one iwi that put up their hand to come along.
So on that note, I'll have to respond to you in the same light.
Can I just, sorry, I just need to call time out here. I'm an issue between a BNZ partner and BNZ? Is this Independent Māori Statutory Board and ATEED, or is this Māori and business? I think we're just getting a little bit lost in the conversation here. So I'm not too sure where.
I accept that, then we're lost tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah, I think my understanding of where we had got to is, the Mayor talked very clearly about the benefit to New Zealand Inc., some companies are based here in Auckland but benefit the whole of New Zealand Inc. And I guess that's a wider discussion that we would need to have. As far as the relationship with Māori business and Māori business clients, we just need to make sure that people are all aware of when the groups are going up to China and included. Councillor Darby.
I think the Mayor's covered most, but I just do want to acknowledge all those that went up. I think the Mayor said we arrived there at midnight. We left here at midnight, we arrived there at 5:30 and our first meeting was half an hour later. And it's a well-oiled machine that Koro at Global Partnerships has. I was really impressed, Koro, with every one of your individuals on the ground. They are just working relentlessly to make sure it stays oiled all the way until the minute of departure. The same goes for Pam's team at AT. It is an impressive organisation. Councillor Cashmore warned me, he says, don't expect to have any time off. There is no time off. It is just go, go, go. But look, some of the relationships, you know, we've heard from Garth. Garth, congratulations. I heard about the big 76 hectare landscape project you had. I didn't hear about the other two, and Brandon's companies as well. But you know, I met an operator up there, a Chinese operator, and the discussion was about honey. That honey conversation has turned into an introduction to a major property investor. So her honey partner just happens to be a very hefty property investor. And it started in honey, and it's ended up into a very big housing development in South Auckland, possibly. So who would have thought a conversation just one day out of those three would turn into a relationship that could deliver a major investment in housing in South Auckland. So that just gives you an idea of how complex it is doing business in the Chinese market. Expect the unexpected, but I have to say Mayor Goff is highly respected there, very highly respected, and his presence, in my view, had greater weight than another mayor from another continent, who was our partner, so to speak. Mayor Wynne he could probably lift the phone and talk to Beijing any time. The mayors there are serious political players, and he turned up to a few events more than we thought he was going to turn up to. Such was his relationship with New Zealand, I thought. Congratulations to you all. It was pretty impressive and the outcomes are obvious.
Well, thank you. We'll I'll move would you like to move the recommendation, Councillor Darby? Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, and Councillor Cashmore, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Oh, Councillor Cooper, did you? Yes. So we just, no, I thought this was just the presentation. I can't see because it's got the thing over it. Oh, right, I see what you're asking. Okay, that's not going to preclude, I just wanted to deal with this and, okay, and we can go back to that. I just want us to receive this and the presentation regarding the report. We're fine to do that, and then you can ask quick questions on the information. No, because it's just information. Okay, let's just deal with this one. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And I just want to echo the warm thanks for this extraordinary work. Travelling up to China is certainly no junket. Some of us who've done that have come back beyond exhausted, but it's so exciting to hear that it's had such good results. I think that's fantastic. And thank you for taking the time to actually come and share that. It's, as I said at the beginning, we don't often get that chance. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Thanks,
Chair, and
Pam.
thank you,
Thanks,
councillors.
Cora. So, Councillor Cooper, oh, no, oh, you're there. No, I'm just... I think this is one of the difficulties with our information sheets, and probably the best thing to do is to just go straight to the person who prepared it where possible. So let's move on to item number excluded.